हेलो गाइस, और कैसे हैं आप सब? आई होप आप सब बढ़िया होंगे। मैं भी एकदम बढ़िया हूँ। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट टुडेस Vprople question of the day. The name of this question is maximum z sum. So in this question we have been provided a matrix, and inside this matrix we have to find z sum for each of the element. So let's see what is z sum. Z sum for an element whose index value is I comma j inside the matrix is the sum of the elements present at the position I comma j plus 1, I plus 1 comma j, I plus 1 comma j plus 1. So just for an element such as whose index value is 1 comma 1, such as this is the first element of this matrix, its index value is 1 comma 1, then its z sum will constitute of the sum of the elements present at the value I comma j plus 1, I plus 1 comma j, and I plus 1 comma j plus 1. So we have to find this z sum for all the elements inside this matrix, for all the elements inside this matrix. And after that, what we have to do, we have to find the maximum z sum found inside this matrix, and we have to print all the position value, all the elements present at these position values, I plus j and I comma j and these position values. So the input format of this question is, first of all we will input the number of rows in the matrix, and in the next line we will input the number of columns in the matrix. In the next line we will input the number of elements inside the matrix row wise separated by a space. So first of all, let's write the code to input all these rows and columns inside the matrix. R equal to integer input will take the number of rows. C equal to integer input will input the number of columns inside the matrix. And now I'm going to create a matrix, a list named matrix, inside which I'm going to store all these rows value. So for I in range R, that is number of rows, input, that is value, list in the form of list, map integer input dot split. So this is a way to take space separated input in Python. And after that, taking this value as input, I'm going to append this value inside the list name matrix. So let's first of all print the value that we have stored inside the matrix. So this is the value that we have stored inside the matrix, 1 2 3 2 4 7 1 2 3. So we can see here the values have been stored in the form of a nested list. So now we have to build a logic to calculate the z sum for each of the elements present inside this matrix. So to calculate the z sum for each of the elements inside this matrix, I'm going to use two for loops. So for I in range R minus 1, that is number of rows minus 1, number of rows inside the matrix minus 1, and for j in range C minus 1. And now for every value of I comma j, I'm going to find these values present inside the matrix for every I comma j value. So the first value that we need to find is, I'm going to store all these values inside a list named L equal to matrix I j, that is the first one, I comma j. The next one is I comma j plus 1, I comma j, matrix matrix I j plus 1, comma matrix I plus 1 comma j, that is, yeah, it is I plus 1 comma j, and the fourth position value is I plus 1 comma j plus 1, and comma matrix I plus 1 j plus 1. So in this question, the output format is just like we have to find the maximum z sum from all these from for all these elements inside the matrix. First of all, we will find the z sum, and from all these z sum found, we will find the maximum z sum. And with that maximum z sum value, we will find the element we will find the element whose z sum is maximum inside this matrix, and we will print its position value. So for every element, I'm going to store its position value also in the form of I comma j. For every element, I'm first of all I'm going to find these position values I comma j plus 1, I plus 1 comma j, I plus 1 comma j plus 1. And after that, I'm going to store its position value, its original position value I comma j. And after that, if we add all these value, we will get the z sum for this particular element whose position value is I comma j. So we have finally built the logic to get the z sum value for each of the element. So when we look at the output format is, we have to print the maximum z sum value from all the elements. We have to print the maximum z sum value, and after that we have to print the element which had the we have to print the position value of that element which had the maximum z sum value. So that's why after we add all these elements, we will get the z sum value, and this I comma j is the index value of this particular element whose z sum is found here. So now I'm going to store all these z sum values inside a list named z underscore sum, z underscore sum dot append l. So this z underscore sum contains the max contains all the z sum values. And now if I print this z sum value, z sum list, I will get something in the format of 1224002 for 1201 and all these things. So now in order to find the z sum value, I'm going to run a for loop for I in z underscore sum, and for each value of I, I'm going to add all these first four elements I 0 to 4. These are the first four elements. I 0 to 4 contain the first four elements for all the values, for all the values inside the z underscore sum, and give me this maximum, and give me the maximum value after adding all these z sum values. After adding all these four elements inside this list z underscore sum, give me the maximum value. So print z underscore val. So z underscore val will give us the maximum z sum value found from this matrix. So the maximum z sum value is 16. So now we have to print those elements index values which contain the maximum z sum, and also with that index values we have to print all those elements which were used to find the z sum value for that particular index for the particular element. So for that reason, I'm going to run a for loop for I in z underscore sum if the sum of the first four elements inside the matrix sum I 0 to 4, if sum of the first four elements inside the matrix is equal to z underscore val, which contains the maximum z sum value, then print the last element contains I comma j. The last element of this value I will contain the index value of that particular element which contain the maximum z sum value. So that will be I comma j. So star I comma j, and with that also print these first four values I 0 to 4. Print the first four values, and print the index value. So the output format of this question is, in the first line print the maximum z sum value, in the next line print the position of element of z structure that contains a maximum z sum value, and in the next line print the position of first element of z structure with the maximum z sum value, which basically means that in the first print statement print the maximum z sum value. So I have to give here a print statement for the maximum z sum value stored inside the z underscore val, and the next print statement we will print the index values of those elements which contain the maximum z sum value, and in the next line we will print all those elements which constitute the z sum value for that particular element present at the I comma j position. And I have to separate all these values with a tab space, backslash t comma sep equal to backslash t. And also, no, okay, let's print this statement. So we have gotten the correct output, but there is a slight change. Okay, so in the Python contains starts the indexing from 0, but in the real life we start the indexing from 1, so I have to store all these values with a plus 1, because the indexing in Python starts from 0, but in the real life we'll take the indexing starting from 1. So we have to print them in this particular format. In place of 0 I have to place 1, and in place of 1 I have to place 2. So I've made the correct changes. So now let's print and check that our code is correct or not. So our code is completely correct as it has passed all the test cases. So this was a very good question for today's POD. I hope all of you must have understood the way I explained you the solution of this question. So this was me, Utkarsh, signing off for the day. Thank you. Have a nice day.